So, how did a former business professor actually use a pretty controversial private equity tactic to rescue South Korea's entire banking system from total collapse?
Right, it's a wild story.
It really is. Welcome to today's deep dive. We've pulled together a stack of sources today, primarily centered on Weijian Shan's book, Money Games. And our mission here is to figure out how you bring a whole country's economy back from the dead. We are heading back to 1997.
Yeah, right in the middle of the Asian financial crisis.
Exactly. The crisis is just raging. Massive South Korean conglomerates are collapsing left and right. The IMF steps in, and the country's crown jewel, Korea First Bank, or KFB, goes completely bankrupt.
The whole system was, it was on the verge of total failure. And the solution they came up with involves this slightly mysterious financial maneuver known as the good bank, bad bank model.
Which sounds kind of strange on paper.
It does, yeah. We'll get into the mechanics of how you actually pull that off in just a second. You first have to understand the sheer scale of the damage KFB was dealing with.
Right. They were sitting on a massive portfolio of toxic, completely uncollectible loans. So the proposal from Newbridge Capital, the American private equity firm that stepped in, was to literally split the bank in two.
Right down the middle.
The Korean government would keep all the toxic legacy loans, and Newbridge would take over a clean, debt-free, quote-unquote, good bank.
Is this strategy essentially like amputating an infected limb to save the rest of the patient?
Financially speaking, yeah, absolutely. On a balance sheet, you are legally separating the bad assets, so the loans that will never be paid back from the operating bank.
Right.
The government absorbs that infected debt, and Newbridge recapitalizes the remaining clean entity. And recapitalizing, it just means injecting fresh cash into the bank.
Right, so it has the legally required reserves to actually start lending money again.
Exactly.
But, okay, imagine being the Korean government for a moment here. You are already dealing with the humiliation of an IMF bailout.
And now these foreign investors are telling you to absorb billions in toxic waste while they just walk away with a clean, healthy bank. Why would they ever agree to that?
Well, because if the government didn't absorb those bad loans, KFB would collapse entirely. And that would likely drag down the rest of the sovereign banking sector with it.
Oh, wow. So they were basically backed into a corner.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Still, the political friction this financial surgery caused was just immense.
Which brings up the next hurdle. If you are amputating the bad loans, how do you even agree on what is actually infected?
Yeah, that caused a massive clash of credit cultures. Take Hanbo Steel, for example. It was a giant corporation that went completely bankrupt.
Right.
But under traditional Korean accounting rules at the time, KFB's loans to Hanbo were still considered performing.
Wait, really? If they were bankrupt, how is the loan performing?
Well, because Hanbo was making its interest payments right up until the day it collapsed. Local banks just weren't looking ahead at the borrower's actual ability to pay off the principal amount.
Oh, I see.
So Newbridge came in demanding forward-looking international standards. They wanted to classify these loans as bad before the companies imploded.
But, isn't this just American investors aggressively forcing their Western cultural norms onto a sovereign nation during a moment of extreme vulnerability?
The Korean public certainly felt that sting. But systemic survival required a harsh reality check. The old system relied heavily on relationship-based lending to K-balls.
Those are the massive corporate conglomerates, right?
Right. And they were so deeply interconnected that if one failed, it threatened to take down the others. Lending based on relationships rather than hard financial metrics is, well, it's exactly what caused the crash.
So they had to redefine what a healthy loan looked like.
Exactly. They had no choice.
Okay, so once that old infection is cleared out, KFB suddenly has no one to lend to. They have to figure out how to make money again. So they pivot away from those risky corporate K-balls and tap into a virgin market for them, retail banking.
Yeah, they actually introduced 30-year residential mortgages to Korea.
Which is wild. But to do this safely, they introduced a centralized loan approval system. It was this hidden black box built by financial rocket scientists.
And this completely revolutionized their operations. Instead of local branch managers approving loans based on who they knew or, what favors were owed, this new algorithm looks strictly at borrower data.
Like income history, debt-to-income ratios, and verified employment records.
Exactly. It completely stripped the local branch managers of their lending power.
How did KFB's veteran workforce react to having their traditional authority just yanked away like that and replaced by a centralized algorithm?
Oh, it was a brutal culture shock. Decades of status and relationship building just vanished overnight. Decisions were now based purely on data.
But the results were undeniable, right?
Absolutely undeniable. Loans that used to take weeks of negotiation could be approved in 3 days, and their credit loss ratio dropped to practically zero.
That turnaround is staggering. This strict credit discipline actually worked. KFB was resurrected, became highly profitable, and was eventually sold to Standard Chartered for $3.3 billion.
It proves that separating toxic assets, injecting fresh capital, and changing the underlying culture of risk can bring an institution back from the absolute brink.
It's incredible. So, a thought to leave you with. The next time you see a massive bank rescue or a corporate bailout in the news, look past the headlines. Ask yourself, who is secretly holding the toxic assets?
Because in global finance, someone always has to hold the bag for the bad debt.
Right. Keep an eye out for those invisible money games playing out in the economy around you.